Okay, good morning, everyone. I see it is 10 o'clock. If everybody's ready, I'm going to kick off. Good, so welcome to our webinar on customer insights for financial services. Pretty excited to show you some of the things we prepared today. So we've got a couple of speakers. I am an account executive at Mint. My name is Roger Strain. For those of you who haven't met, hello. We've got Craig Mitchellmore as well, who's going to be talking about catalyst design thinking. I'm going to cover, as you can see on the agenda on the left there, the main demo for customer insights for financial services. And then Akko is going to cover finance and operations, and Peter DeToy is going to come in with some of the opportunities we've got around engaging around some of these points. Great. So just to kick off with a bit of an introduction to those of you that don't know the Mint Group, we are a business that is focused on creating tomorrow, and we do this by inspiring our employees and clients and partners to reach their full potential through technology solutions based on the product we're focusing on today, Dynamics 365, but also Microsoft 365, Azure, and specifically within Azure, the artificial intelligence or cognitive services components. So our business has been around since 2001, got about 130 employees, and we're a level BE and ISO 27001 certified. We've got a couple of accolades we're really proud of. As far as business applications, which of course is what we're talking about with Microsoft's products today, we're an Inner Circle partner member. So this is for their top 1% of Microsoft partners around the world. We also on the advisory board, the partner advisory board, or PAC as it's called, for the Dynamics 365 products as well as Microsoft 365. And yeah, we're focused on quite a variety of different industries. Obviously, today we're talking about financial services. We also have clients across a number of other industries, public sector, education, healthcare, media, and retail. Although our primary business is based in Cape Town and Johannesburg, we do also have a lot of presence up into Africa. A lot of work we do is in Kenya and Nigeria. We also have an office in the US, based in Austin in Texas, and we've done quite a lot of work in the Asia Pacific region as well. As you can see in the bottom right there, we are gold certified on a number of the different Microsoft platforms, obviously the business applications as well, which is in scope for today. So the way our business is structured, the top left there is Dynamics, so we have a practice based on the Dynamic solutions. As we're going to be delving into that today, I won't go into too much more detail. But in the block just below that, you can see we are focused on Microsoft 365 solutions as well. And really what we're doing here is a lot of work with Teams, increasingly, obviously, post-COVID. We also have some apps. I've got a screenshot in a second of some of the work we're doing around modern meetings and leveraging some of the apps within Teams. A lot of that we're doing in our financial services clients especially. We also do enterprise content management, and we do build of applications and deployments around the Microsoft 365 space. We're specialists in Power Apps, so we'll be talking a little bit more about some of the extensibility capabilities of the platforms. We also have a team focused on what we call digital enablement, what many might call change management, but specifically in the technologies in which we're supporting. So trying to get adoption within our user base of these technologies. So then at the top right, you can see we also have a team that is focused on Microsoft Azure. There's actually two components to that team. So there's the orange one and the red one there. The orange one is really focused around operations as a service a brand we call Smart. So we've got a number of different smart technologies. So this is leveraging the cloud Azure stack to provide various solutions. One example is SAP, the ERP solution on Azure, with one of the first implementers of that in South Africa, and we've got a number of capabilities in that area. And then the red block in the bottom right there is around a team that is focused on artificial intelligence solutions. One of the main focus areas is on a product around vision. So facial recognition, document recognition, anything that involves vision and artificial intelligence. So notably, for example, we have this deployed in universities and healthcare clinics to help with everything from student attendance and security to improving the waiting times in queues in these clinics. So there's quite a lot we do. You'll see we've got a couple of COVID apps. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the Know Your Customer stuff we're doing around FICA and verification. And yeah, we obviously do quite a lot of work with chatbots as well. Peter is going to be talking to that block at the bottom, so we'll talk about some more of the services and some of the package services that we're offering when we get to that point. Okay, so just talking a little bit more specifically about some of our financial services experience. You'll see this is both in South Africa, but also in some of those other geographies that I mentioned. So you'll see hopefully some names that you recognize on these slides. And I guess it's really about insurance. So pretty much all of the top insurers are using Mint for their Dynamics 365. Similar story with the banks. And we have a couple of banks up into Africa as well, such as Access Bank and Sterling Bank. These are big banks in Nigeria. And then a number of others across various parts of the financial services space. So, for example, the JSE is a client of ours. You'll see Fairheads Benefit Services are listed here as well, obviously providing beneficiary administration services. So we really have had, over a long period of time, a lot of experience in this financial services space on Dynamics, but also on some of the other workloads we do as Mint. Yeah. So I wanted to talk specifically about some of the solutions that we have on top of the platform that are applicable for financial services. The first one is around anti-money laundering and specifically the client remediation in that space. We've got some big customers here. Nedbank and Old Mutual are most notable in that area, for example. And we have a lot of the workload on Dynamics 365 that we've implemented in that space. One of the key things these organizations are doing is putting in a layer on top of their existing line of business, policy administration and investment administration systems to deal with the anti-money laundering requirements for the ever-evolving legislation that is a feature of the space. I did allude earlier to KYC and FICA, so we have a couple of solutions around the space. Notably that AI team that I mentioned is working currently on an app that is available through a browser. So you can interact with a customer and they can authenticate using the camera on their device, either laptop or tablet or phone, through a web browser. So that is a particularly cool feature. There's a liveness test that happens there. And this is really a platform that you could include into your existing systems. And then talking about some of the artificial intelligence capabilities this team can produce. A lot of what we do is working with data. So things like propensity for customer churn, customer lifetime value, next best product, next best channel. These are all capabilities that we've delivered in some of those clients that you saw on the logos there. We've got a pretty cool methodology around this, which we call 10-10-10. And that's about coming up with solutions where we do 10 hours for a concept, 10 days for a proof of concept, and 10 weeks for a minimum viable product. So in a space where we're not sure how successful the artificial intelligence might be based on your data, this is a wonderful methodology to get you started with AI. You've noticed a bunch of insurance logos on those slides. We should have a similar one like this for banking. I didn't actually just pull it together in time for this presentation. But just to give you an idea of some of the workloads from an insurance point of view that we've been helping these customers with. So things like retention, we talk about business at risk, similar to a sales opportunity, but logging the opposite of that, the risk of somebody offboarding. We do a lot of work around client onboarding. I mean, we have mentioned KYC and FICA, but there's a lot more to it in terms of obviously managing the onboarding of a client across the various systems in our organization. So a lot of them are using Dynamics for managing that process. We talk about delivery management. So for example, in the investment space, managing quarterly performance report backs, for example, and everything associated with that. So just to give you a bit of an idea, I mean, one of the other ones worthy of mention here is managing the whole life cycle of the intermediary, the whole life cycle of recruiting them, onboarding them, dealing with movements, and ultimately exiting and managing debt. So that's a workload that we've managed in more than one occasion. I earlier alluded to next generation meetings. Obviously, Teams is such a big part of all of our lives now, and it is an ideal place for apps. So we have leveraged, for example, this screenshot you're seeing here, it might be a bit small on your screen, is an app in Power Apps within Teams, which is used for managing company board meetings and dealing with the putting together of agendas, getting voting on those agenda items, and the whole process of managing those meetings. A couple of variations on various requirements in our client base around those. And today you're going to be hearing from A Solutions, and Akko is going to be telling you all about FinTech, AFinTech, and really what this is about is leveraging the integration of core banking line of business applications with Dynamics, and specifically the finance and operations parts of Dynamics. So this is an integration capability that really cuts down the integration time by something like 75%. So if you're in banking and interested in integrating your financials from Dynamics through to your core banking, do pay attention when Akko is running you through the detail of their product set. Okay, he's going to talk about what we're doing. Craig, you there?
Hi, I am here. Yes, sorry. I think there was a connectivity issue for a second.
Great.
Roger, do you want to just go on to mute there?
Let me find out how to do that.
Okay, great. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. I'm going to take you through a little bit more about what the Microsoft Catalyst program is and how that plugs into the FSI world. The Catalyst program, if we go on to the next slide, please. The Catalyst program sits very tightly into the work that I do with Mint. I am a specialist consultant within the digital transformation space. I bring quite a creative zone into this with design thinking and envisioning, and also from a point of view of stimulating and catalyzing organizational change against digital transformation roadmaps. So the Catalyst program is really built quite strongly around how do we help your customer journey, and how does the engagement improve based on how we get the business transformation moving through a whole lot of curated phases. Microsoft's Catalyst program is built on the 4 pillars that you see on the slide now, known as IDEA, which stand for Inspire, Design, Empower, and Achieve. So I'll take you through each one of these pillars, and then from there, I'll delve a little bit deeper into the business value assessments that form part of design. And from there onwards, we'll talk a little bit about how we can do innovation with you in the design thinking space and what that means in terms of some really good advancements on a fail-fast methodology. So on the Inspire pillar, this is about imagining your future state of your organization. And the way that we do this is we dig a little deeper into aspects around how engaged your stakeholders are, what are they going to be seeing going forward in terms of strategy. And what we're looking for in this is we're looking for what are your strategic priorities and what are your current challenges, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense to be doing this kind of work for the sake of doing the work. The other thing is we look at your key initiatives that will align with that strategy, and then we look at highlighting which of those initiatives will bring you the highest value in the shortest time. And the intersection of where that is we then start to look at how are you going to get this traction into your business by envisioning what this future state looks like. In order to do that envisioning, we need 2 critical pieces to this. One of them is the persona identification. So we're looking at really the generic version of your customer or your consumer as a persona, and how do we plug that into the design thinking space. We also start looking at what is your current state. So we look very carefully at where do you sit in the current space against a database of information that Microsoft have been able to pull together based on worldwide trends and analysis. So that database forms a baseline and a set of best practice standards. And we look at saying, where is your organization at this point in time on that scale? Do we need to improve against it? Are you ahead of the curve on this? And how do we then take that and plug that into the Inspire phase? The next piece in this is the design pillar. And the design pillar really comprises 2 main areas, that being your business value assessment that we do and a technical assessment of the landscape of your organization. Now, I know that within FSI, the very big players have got very, very large enterprise landscapes. So we wouldn't be looking at doing from a technical assessment every single analysis of what's sitting in the organizational landscape. We would take business units and compartmentalize them as to what they're looking like. What we're looking at is we're looking at to see what kind of high-level technology impacts can we create based on transformation within that technical landscape. We also have a number of other objectives. The business value assessment is designed, where can we bring the most impact into the area, where we're able to prioritize the initiatives based on the time factors that we have on the table, what's the size of the impact that you're trying to achieve, and what are the risks in the environment. And then also building on the business case to map your total cost of ownership, because we're wanting to see that decline and seeing a ramp up on the benefits as well as fastest return on investment. We also identify what the key technology drivers are that are going to drive that transformation in the documentation we ultimately deliver as outputs on the business value assessment. Once we've achieved what we need to do in Inspire and Design, we then pull together all of that information to create the Empower pillar. And the Empower pillar is a presentation to the key sponsors and stakeholders that is quite far down the road removed from brochureware and videos, but it's not at the level where there's a POC. It sits somewhere between those 2 spaces. And what we're doing is we're demonstrating to you the best kinds of solutions that can be applied into the environment. And we're also trying to make sure that we're aligned with that original database of information and best practices that Microsoft have been able to supply to us as partners. Once that's been done, the achieve phase is ready to then take what we've demonstrated in the empower phase and get the buy-in of sponsors and stakeholders to take this to a POC. And hopefully from the POC, we ultimately are going to end up at a project that's going to make a meaningful impact within your environment as the customer. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this is the methodology that we have within Mint that is aligned to the Microsoft Catalyst naming conventions of the pillars. Our Design Think Virtual, which I will give a lot more detail in the last slide, is a virtual environment for creating innovation and coming up with a whole lot of really interesting ways of bringing new innovations to market with you, as well as the prototyping and testing phases. I need to explain that within this concept of what we take to market, we have a very strong fail fast principle that underlies this. The reason we have this is because the amount of time that sits inside of wasted research and development ultimately becomes a cost that has to be amortized across a viable solution that's ultimately found. And when you do that, your total cost of ownership has actually increased. So we look very carefully at how do we fail fast? How do we prototype in a very expeditious way that is ultimately going to give you the fastest go-to-market, the fastest return on investment, and the lowest total cost of ownership? Our understanding to design is the part that we call our engage.proactive, which aligns with the BVA and the technical assessment I spoke to earlier. And then the demoing of the solutions is to give you the showcase of what the potential is that's sitting within the technology to be applied against the business problem statement. And then the future mapping of what your roadmap looks like. And I can't emphasize carefully enough the importance of this roadmap in the digital transformation space that Catalyst starts to unlock. We have seen numerous customers who see digital transformation as a very isolated set of initiatives that are technology flavored only. There is a large amount of caution that I always advise in this. Digital transformation is not just about technology. In fact, the success of digital transformation, if I had to put that on a scale, is 50% of it is about your people, the behavior, the engagement, and how they see this digital technology coming forward to assist the success of your strategies. So that's the one component. The other one is about your organizational design and being able to bring through this agile mentality and the design-led culture to make sure that your organization adopts not just the digital part of this, but the actual transformative behaviors. And then the last one is obviously, of course, the technology that comes through on the roadmap. And that requires a really careful planning to overcome all of the fatigue of change that exists, I think, in organizations. It's a very, very complicated environment. Staff bases and workforces are subjected to numerous and successive amounts of change, and they become so fatigued that after a while, the change is happening for the sake of change. It is not giving you really important and viable outcomes on your way forward, either in a more competitive space or new products and services or better customer engagement as you move forward on your journey. So that's the view of what Mint has in terms of how we work with Catalyst. Can I go to the next slide, please? In this slide, you'll see that the prioritized industries that we have, which are aligned to Microsoft's, happen to be sitting in those top 6 sectors of the economies, that being manufacturing, health, automotive, government, media and comms, FSI, and retail. In the section underneath, you'll see the idea framework as it drives along that transformation journey. And as I've explained to you in quite a bit of detail, the envisioning workshop is the design thinking piece of this, and where we're starting to unlock really good ideas and wants that come from the sponsors and stakeholders in the organization. It's also driven by the requirements that the customers are expressly or tacitly requesting of your organization for better engagement with them. The business value assessment and the technical assessment I've explained in quite a lot of depth, and the empower side is that demo. But in the achieve side, we look at the deal crafting that's going to have to be brought through so that the sponsors and the key stakeholders buy into this as a program of events going forward. That deal crafting includes all of the commercials and the legals or legalities that are involved to take this to a project status, and we carefully map out in that deal crafting what the expectations are so that we're not just working to straight commercials. We really want to have the relationship with you as our customers where the expectations are met every single time. In the next slide, if we can just pop into that one, you'll see that this is why Catalyst. What is Catalyst really going to do? And if you look at the 3 bullet points that I've put on the left-hand side, the summary of this is hitting your strategy on the nail and making sure that we bring you the best and fastest benefit ramps as we go forward in our program. We want to see you have the fastest return of investment and the fastest delivery of value to the customers. Our direct outcomes are that we and yourselves get a very strong visibility of your business problems and how we're going to solve them. With very large enterprise environments that a lot of you come from, you sit with a very high degree of complexity that almost at times is chaotic to understand and get to grips with. And I think with the envisioning workshops, it easily unlocks this in a structured way to get to the root causes of the business problems that exist. The technical and solution architecture is something that comes out of that assessment that I spoke about earlier, and then of course you get the digital transformation plan that I've just spoken to on the previous slide. The indirect outcomes is the possibilities and the potentials of the relationships that we have with you as our customers, because we unlock how we're going to have access to sponsors and stakeholders, as well as then looking at additional opportunities that happen organically through this process, as well as the market shifts that you deal with on a very regular basis. Again, I reiterate that the agile deployment of everything speaks to that fail fast methodology and making sure that we have very good momentum when it comes to the deployment of solutions and any development that goes on inside of that too. In the last slide that I'm going to speak to now, I would really like to show you about what this investment in Catalyst from a Mint perspective looks like. So in March, when we suddenly got faced with the COVID-19 initial hard lockdowns, we were unable to have face-to-face engagements with our customers and in workshops as well, exactly the same as you were. So we had to very quickly pivot and come up with something which was going to give us the virtual contact in the space. So our DesignThink.Catalyst is a program around envisioning your future state of your business and how we can pull that through with design thinking to a point where there are viable prototypes in the organization. We were the first partner in Africa to put this kind of solution into Microsoft's AppSource, and it's fully virtual. So to give you an idea of how this works, everything is based in Microsoft Teams, so we don't have to switch backwards and forwards on different platforms and different softwares. What we do is we deploy this into with your teams. We also have a situation where we, instead of saying to our customers, just arrive at a one-day workshop and let's get going on this, we have accelerator participant readiness workshops. These 2 workshops are held 3 or 4 days in advance of the actual workshop, and they're done so that your attendees who are coming into these virtual workshops don't have a fear around the technology that they're engaging with. They also get better sight of the expectations of what design thinking is going to demand of them, and what the expectations are of the sponsors and stakeholders within your organization as to why we're even having one of these workshops. As you'll see on the right-hand side, this is really a screenshot of what the team structure looks like in Microsoft Teams. And in the bottom section, you'll see 8 steps. In the workshop itself, we go through from steps 1 to 5. And sorry, I have something has just popped across there. Thanks very much. You'll see that there are 5 steps that are there. The stakeholders analysis is a very key way we unpack with your attendees who are the stakeholders who can help us to get to the success in this process. We then move to a user journey map, which looks at the friction points of the user's engagement of your product or your service, because no product or service is absolutely seamless in its engagement or the customer's engagement of it. So whether it be a UX or UI space that needs a bit of upgrading or complete redesign, whether it's the engagement through technology or through people, we look very closely at this user journey map and every single node in that journey that the customer is dealing with your organization. We look at the emotive context of that engagement. So is this driving frustration? Because there's nothing worse than dealing with an organization whose attempts to engage with you create a great deal of frustration. That's a perfect recipe to lose customers to competitors who have got better methods of engagement. So that user journey map is really, really critical. And in that process, we also delve deeply into those personas that I spoke to earlier on and how the personas and the user journey maps have overlap. We then use crowdsourcing insights, and the crowdsourcing insights is a mixture of sponsor and stakeholder inputs, as well as consumer inputs, as well as inputs from the attendees of the workshop. Once that's done, we then have been able to distill and crystallize what your key business problem statement is. So we're dealing with a root issue rather than dealing with symptoms. We then ideate and get to a point where there are a number of prototypes that are literally tested within the workshop because they're very simple fail-fast designs. And we ultimately get to 1 or 2 that we see as fairly viable to take back into your organization. We then come to the end of the actual workshop, but for a period of 2 weeks thereafter, steps 6 and 7 are happening in the background with the attendees and the facilitator being involved in this, so that there's constant momentum to test those viable prototypes to a point where they are absolutely confirmed as being ready for a proof of concept. And from there, we engage with commercials to take your organization into a proof of concept. We then survey the successes of the workshop amongst attendees, sponsors, and stakeholders. So I think that gives you a very broad overview of what we have as Microsoft Catalyst being delivered by Mint. If you wish to ask questions, please feel free to do so in the questions and answers section of this live event. You can also scan the QR code, which is in the top right-hand side of the screen at the moment, and you can contact me on LinkedIn. If none of that happens to work for you, then please feel free to engage on our website, which is mintgroup.net. Send a message to us there, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And even if it requires that we have a brief chat virtually online, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thanks for your time, and good luck with the rest of the webinar ahead.
Thank you, Craig. And great, we're going to move now on to the main demo that I wanted to share with you. I should have mentioned at the start that we will, I think we did include in the invitation the fact that we're going to be doing a bit of a Takealot voucher gift for the attendees of this event. So to help drive the engagement, do stick around. We will be announcing the winner of that Takealot voucher. It's a £500 voucher. We'll be announcing by email a little later on this afternoon. So we'll announce the winner then. So In terms of taking you through the customer insights capabilities within financial services specifically, I did want to kind of craft a bit of a story for you here. I think the first thing is obviously all of this is based on Microsoft's cloud capabilities. So I'm pretty sure most of the companies on here are already running one of the Microsoft cloud services, and probably you're well familiar with Microsoft's current global reach in terms of this capability. I think notably for us in our financial services customers, we now have South African data centers. Dynamics 365 is now lit up in these data centers. We've got our first financial services client running live in them now. And that is fantastic news, and it's a wonderful time to be a consultant on Dynamics at this time in South Africa. There's been an amazing momentum around Dynamics 365 and the underlying platform, which we'll unpack a little bit, what we call the Power Platform. So, I mean, Dynamics 365 has experienced 41% year-on-year growth, and it's not a small business now. So that is quite astounding growth. Something like 7,000 financial services organizations running Dynamics globally, and the penetration in South Africa specifically is also right up there in terms of the statistics here. 90% of the world's globally significant financial services institutions are running on the Microsoft Cloud. Something like 2.5 million developers on the Power Platform. 84% of the Fortune 500 have already done something on that Power Platform. We'll unpack Power Apps a little bit later. And yeah, just to kind of paint the picture for you, the business applications ecosystem for Microsoft is based on Dynamics 365. So you'll see the capabilities inside the circle here include talent, human resources capability, finance and operations, sales, service, marketing, and retail. So for this presentation, you'll see in a minute, I'm going to focus mainly on what we would previously call customer engagement components of Dynamics 365. And then Akko is going to take you through more of the finance and operations components. All of these are integrated on a common data model, which we'll talk a bit about in a minute. One of the important things Microsoft is doing is putting down this common data model or common data service in its cloud platforms and providing accelerators on top of this common data model. So specifically, there's an insurance accelerator, and there is a banking banking accelerator. There are for other industries as well, notably healthcare and others. And this common data model is supporting all of the global best practice and legislative requirements for those sectors, so insurance and banking. And Microsoft's intent here is to provide this as a platform that companies like Mint and other providers of applications that are written on the platform or using the capabilities, the configuration capabilities of the platform to provide solutions in these industries can build on top of. And this obviously then supports easier integration between applications as this ecosystem evolves. So I'm not planning to go into any of that in more detail, but if you are interested in those, there's a lot of information available online. And if you're in this space and you're looking at Dynamics, it's important to understand what's evolving there. So as I've mentioned a few times now, there's an underlying platform here of the Power Platform. And we'll be getting into that in a little bit more detail. But in summary, we've got Power BI, which many of you have probably heard of and used for data analytics on this platform. You may or may not have used Power Automate or have heard of Flows. So this is a workflow capability on the platform. And Power Apps. There's two flavors there, both Canvas apps and model-driven apps. And really, Dynamics 365 is a model-driven app. And we would use Power Apps to not only extend and configure the Dynamics 365 applications, but potentially deliver other applications as well for different workloads on this common data model. So that's a little bit about the ecosystem. The focus for what I want to take you through is really the customer journey through your marketing engagement, generating leads based on campaigns, getting engagement in your digital content, and then taking you through a sales process where your sales teams are driving those leads and opportunities to become customers, where they are then supported inside your organization through your service teams, both from a contact center point of view as well as your customer-facing reps. So in doing that, there's really three components to this, and I want to start with a component which we call Activate Digital Selling, and specifically for financial services. So buyers have evolved. Many of us are in sales, and we have experienced this for ourselves. So there is a preference for self-service. I'm sure you recognize that in yourself, even if you are not seeing that from your customers. So 75% of buyers said their purchases involve people from a wide variety of roles, teams, and locations, meaning we are in business-to-business sales, and even in the business-to-consumer, we have multiple stakeholders that we need to deal with from a customer relationship management point of view. Buyers want a business-to-customer-like experience. There are more and more millennials coming into the workplace, and they are expecting the same experience, the app-like experience that they're getting on many of the other services. Business-to-business buyers prefer digital experiences twice as often. So there's underlying research from McKinsey, Gartner, and TrustRadius here, which is very interesting to have a look at if you're interested. But suffice it to say, if you're in the business of activating digital selling, things are very different today to what they were, and especially post-COVID. So we can help. This is a bit of a picture of what the digital selling landscape looks like and what the main components of the environment look like. There's an awful lot of detail here, and really my purpose was just to show you, I guess, how comprehensive this whole landscape is. In a half an hour presentation, it's difficult to actually get across the extent of what we're dealing with. And I was hoping, I've got a couple of these pictures which will help paint the picture. So when we're activating digital selling, we're starting with our marketing, and you'll see there's a bunch of key components in here. And we're then dealing with our sales teams, and we've got the various components of that. And then there's some underlying technology enablement which we need to deliver that. For the purposes of today, this is what we're going to be focusing on. So from a marketing point of view, we're dealing with Dynamics 365 marketing. And I'm going to demonstrate some of in fact, pretty much all of these key capabilities that we're looking at here. From a sales enablement point of view, we're going to be talking about Dynamics 365 sales. I'm not going to be talking much about Dynamics 365 e-commerce. Suffice it to say that that is a capability. So if you need online products which your customers can acquire, that is a capability in the stack. And then, as I mentioned, we'll be talking a little bit about some of the underlying platform capabilities a little bit later in the presentation. So putting this in a customer journey context, when we're activating digital selling, we're generating awareness, we're taking the customer through an interest generation stage, we're helping them grapple with their consideration of our products. We're taking them through the purchase of those, and then we're nurturing them to make sure that they stay as customers and buy more from us. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about activating digital selling. So the first piece in that giant diagram of all the different boxes that I wanted to cover is a capability called Dynamics 365 Customer Insights. So let me just take you to the right place. And this is Dynamics 365 Customer Insights. And basically what it does is pull together customer data in a unified way. And just to show you how it does that, we're able to define a series of data sources. And as you'll see in a second, this is very wizard driven. We can map to those data sources. So we can say, for example, in this scenario, we've got our banking system, we've got a ticketing or incident tracking system, and we've got a survey system. So we're assuming we've got these different data sources, and here we're mapping different fields to our banking system through a wizard-driven interface. And once we've mapped these, we can match the data. So it then brings together the data in a unified way. So for example, in this case, we may be aggregating our ticketing information based on name and email, and we're getting a 74% match. And we then merge the data. So this duplicates the customers and potentially fields on those customers to produce a unified set of data. I mean, this is one of the main challenges we see our financial services clients grappling with. As Craig mentioned, these are often large organizations, sometimes very federated environments with different business units, and they really battle with this sort of single version of a customer, which, when we're talking about activating digital selling, is a very important starting point. So this is a really powerful capability, data warehouse in a box, if you like. It is a wizard-driven process which drastically reduces the complexity and time to market in terms of bringing together this kind of data. And then with this data, what we're able to do is view not only the customer information, key measures that we can define, KPIs around those customers. So things like the total number, the average deposit in a banking context, client survey score. We're also able to define segments. So we can put together queries which bring together segments of this data. And the next step in this demo is to show you Dynamics 365 Marketing, which then allows you to get out outbound campaigns to digitally nurture these segments of customers. So there's native integration between Dynamics Customer Insights and Dynamics Marketing. I don't know if you picked up, but nowhere so far have we been talking about Dynamics 365 Marketing. It is one of the supported data sources of Customer Insights, but it's certainly not required. So this capability is useful regardless of whether you're running the rest of the Dynamics 365 products or not. Okay. Lastly, just to mention, there is AI intelligence built into Customer Insights. In this demo, we haven't yet defined one, but leveraging the Azure Cognitive Services, we're able to define models, such as a prediction model. So for example, propensity for customer to churn or retention models, some of the examples that we've used here. So once you have this data, we can leverage it for AI purposes very effectively. The next step in the journey then is the interest generation phase. So we're going to take a look now at Dynamics 365 Marketing. If I can find the right page. Right. So this is a demo environment, and it is a real example that we used recently for one of our customers that was really wanting to test this quite thoroughly. And what you get in Dynamics Marketing is the ability to define customer journeys, such as the one you're seeing here. This is a reasonably complex one. You see this little map on the right. We can explore this little map and you can see there's a lot happening here. But just to simplify it for you, the key capability is to use this toolbox here to be able to drag components onto this canvas that you're seeing and craft these journeys. So for example, we're starting with one of those segments. We mentioned segments a minute ago. where we're targeting specific groupings of customers. And we can target them with email and SMSs and LinkedIn campaigns, for example, and even phone calls from our contact center, as you'll see in a second. So if we take this example, let's start with the segmentation. So we can see the properties of these segments here. And I just want to open this one and show you how it was defined, just to give you an idea of the capability. So you'll see here we're targeting our loyalty customer members. So we're assuming we've got a loyalty program in our business, and we're looking at gold, silver, bronze customers. What we're doing here is we're targeting those that have mobile phone numbers and email addresses. And one of the reasons why that customer journey you saw is so expansive is this customer was wanting to make sure that we target people through the right channel. So there was channel marketing rules they wanted to implement, which we've done here. And for example, they wanted to be able to send people with email addresses an email. If they didn't have an email address or it bounced, they wanted to use an SMS, and specifically a smart SMS, meaning an SMS that has a link in it that can be tracked by Dynamics Marketing. And if they don't, if that is unsuccessful, if we don't reach them on either of those two channels, to then target them with a social media campaign. We'll talk about that in a minute. And there was a further step, and that is if they don't even reach them on any of those channels, they wanted to put a phone call to their contact center to actually phone them. So that's why we're including whether they've got mobile numbers and emails. And then what you can see at the bottom here is we've also got, we're checking that they're on a life insurance opt-in list. So that is the segment, and that life insurance opt-in comes up when we're talking about the next step in the process, which is configuring the email. So just to give you an idea, if we look at the properties of the email, what Dynamics Marketing gives you here is a wizard-driven designer that allows you to craft these emails. So the intention is for your teams to be able to do this themselves. This one is actually already live, so I'm not seeing the capability to be able to go and edit it, but it is a lot like what you would get in something like a MailChimp or some of the tools you might have seen before. And there is also HTML editing capabilities. In fact, you can switch easily between editing in HTML and the block editor. The system really supports that very elegantly. So you can craft these emails to get them out to your customers. And if I just show you right at the bottom here, if I click on this unsubscribe link, okay, let me show you the example that I actually set up for you guys. Okay, actually, I see my Outlook is currently closed, so let me not do that. But what's actually happening here is what this customer also wanted us to do. By law, we need to, and from a Poppy point of view, we need to be able to give the customers the ability to manage preferences, including the ability to unsubscribe. But what we don't want to do is just have a big button that they say, here you go, unsubscribe. What we want to actually do is be able to give them the option to choose what they're subscribing to and not subscribing to. So in this case, what we did was we gave them the ability to choose whether to subscribe to life insurance related content as opposed to, say, investment related content. And we may have a couple of different categories there. And then right at the bottom of that page, this unsubscription page would be unsubscribe from all communications. But we really want to de-emphasize that and keep the engagement going with the customer. And then the next step in the journey is a trigger. So in this case, if we look at the properties as trigger, we're waiting for a period of time. This is a demo. And then we're saying, did the email either hard or soft bounce? And what we're doing next then is we're saying, okay, if the email bounced, send them an SMS. And again, this is a trackable SMS. So what we can check is if they clicked on a link, either in the email or the SMS, then we can take the appropriate action in the next step of the journey. So in other words, if the SMS is not successful, we can, for example, deliver a social media campaign. So out of the box, Dynamics 365 Marketing integrates with LinkedIn. This customer also wanted Facebook, so we proposed a custom connector to Facebook. That is a feature of this capability here. And basically, we're taking the custom information, passing it to these social channels, and delivering a social media campaign and receiving the feedback. And then here is the phone call activity, which can be triggered to the Dynamics sales capability to give the customer a call should we not reach them on any of these channels. And then just lastly, you'll see right at the very bottom of this journey, we're targeting customers that only have mobile numbers and only have email addresses in a slightly different way, because obviously we need to manage that in the journey. So this is a real life example, and I think gives a good impression of how we can nurture the digital selling of this customer. So there's a bunch of other capabilities in here. There are landing pages that we can craft. There's a lot else. One of the key capabilities is event management. So here's a bit of an example. This is actually the portal of the Power Platform, Dynamics, or actually now Power App portal. It comes out of the box with Dynamics Marketing, and specifically for this event management requirement. So the portal is obviously configurable. You can change your look and feel, but this information you're seeing here was generated out of the box as a result of me configuring the event management in Dynamics Marketing. So we could define an event and include all of the information that you were seeing on that screen. Just find the one that I've set up before, including, for example, speakers and the guest logistics. For example, there's the ability to manage things like, guests or speakers flying in and staying at hotels. Really, there is a huge system which manages event management here. Obviously, in the context of these online events that we're hosting now, this integrates with the On24 online event capability, as well as Teams. And it is really quite a powerful capability. So I just thought I'd mention that this has been very popular with our financial services customers as well. There's a lot more to Dynamics Marketing, but that hopefully gives you a bit of a feel. The next step in the journey is consideration. So the customer has now got some interest, and they're busy looking at your products. Are they consuming your digital content? And what we're dealing with then is further nurturing and ultimately dealing with our sales teams. So what I wanted to do here is show you a little bit about Dynamics 365 sales. And I just want to find the right place. Here we go. So, and I'm just going to refresh here quickly. Dynamics 365 sales has a couple of different components now, notably sales insights. And this is pre-packaged AI capabilities using some of the underlying capabilities that I've been talking to. So for example, one of the capabilities is a sales accelerator. This is a preview feature, meaning it's recently released, but should be available by the end of the year in wide distribution. And as a salesperson, what it's doing is it's pushing to me key things to work on next. And there's AI behind this. The AI is looking not only at my data in my Dynamics 365 sales, but also in my Office 365, LinkedIn, and potentially other data sources as well. And it's telling me that I need to work on a quotation, and you'll see this is a lead. I think if we click on this one, you may see this is an opportunity. So this is a It is learning by our behaviors and fine-tuning the experience. And if we're looking at our pipeline of sales opportunities, one of the other capabilities of Sales Insights is this relationship health score. So you can see we've got good, poor, and fair opportunities. It's telling us the relationship health, whether it's improving or it's steady or it's declining. And if I open up one of these, there's quite a lot else that it tells us. So a lot of this is based on information coming from Office 365. What we're seeing here is the timeline. There's integration here with Outlook and with our Exchange mailbox in Office 365. And it's then able to tell us, for example, whether the relationship is improving or declining. It's telling us on what basis. It's giving us a predictive opportunity score. So in this case, it's looking at estimated revenue, budget amount, purchase time frame, etc. This is an assistant, so it's giving us notifications of important things that it thinks are relevant based on this data. Important stakeholders, any of our sales team, any of our competitors on this deal, and then relationship analytics. So over and above what I've shown you, it now tells us also email, meeting, and phone calls from them, or from us in this case, and from them. So emails we've been receiving from them and emails we've been sending to them. And obviously this is how it's able to calculate some of these relationship health scores. So this is pretty useful in practice. There is email engagement as part of the product. So in other words, emails that you send either via Outlook that are tracked in Dynamics or sent directly from Dynamics, we're able to track whether people are reading them. If they're clicking on the or opening the attachments in those emails, we're tracking all of that information as well. I mentioned LinkedIn earlier, so just to show you that's one of the key capabilities. There's a feature called Microsoft Relationship Sales. And you get a pretty good idea for it here. So this is my Mint CRM. This is one of my colleagues that I think I can share information on a webinar like this. So because I am using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, what it's showing me in addition to my normal contact information is the information directly from LinkedIn within CRM. So I get information about this person, Andre. I also get information about other people at the company he works for, obviously Mint. And it's showing me people in my network that are linked to this company, but also people in my TeamLink network. So what happens is, in our case, for example, our Mint sales team are all connected on LinkedIn TeamLink. And what this means is these 115 people in this organization, I can reach out to with an introduction based on the fact that my colleagues are connected to those people. So it really does expand the reach of your network. And then you can get introduced to people. Obviously, Andre and I are connected already, but if we weren't, for example, Lionel at Microsoft, I could ask him for an introduction. He knows Andre. There's the concept of icebreakers, so we can see information about Andre that might be useful in terms of this. Let me have a look at that quickly. So, for example, we both went to the University of Cape Town, for example. This could be useful if I'm trying to strike up a conversation with Andre. And then a key feature of LinkedIn Sales Navigator is you get a set number of these in-mails every month. And the secret to this kind of social selling is how you craft these messages and how you personalize them to the people you're targeting. But if you do that right, it is far more effective than email and in a very powerful way to promote your network through social selling. Cool. So that is a bit of an overview on some of the capabilities around the consideration and purchase aspects of Dynamics 365. There is an awful lot more here that I could cover. If you are interested, I think my LinkedIn details are coming up in a minute, and you're welcome to reach out to me and we will go into more depth for you. What I did want to do now, though, is move on to the next topic, which is the customer service aspect of Dynamics 365. So similarly, the way the sales world has been disrupted in this rapidly changed world since COVID, so has our customer service in the world. We've seen many of our customers having to take their contact centers and put them at home. And in doing this, many of our customers that are not on Dynamics 365 have struggled with getting that right. So there's an inability to scale and an inability to deal with the disconnected and remote nature with which we now need to support customers. So these are some stats coming from Gartner and HBR and Accenture, which really highlight this point. So the key requirement, again, I've got a diagram for this, is to enable what we're calling always on customer service, enabling this remote capability to be able to support your customers from wherever your staff are. And again, in the context of today, here are the key capabilities which we're going to be talking to. So we need to enable agent productivity across all of these different channels, and Dynamics 365 customer service does do this. There's a case management capability which is at the core of this, and we'll touch on that. I haven't spoken yet about customer voice, but there is a survey capability. This is based on what was previously Microsoft Office Forms. So the ability to craft surveys and get them out either as part of your sales or customer service capability is baked into the platform. And then we'll talk about some of the, and I'll show you some of the analytics that you can get from that information. So I wanted to start with a demo that hopefully will make this real for you. Let's get to the right place. That's not the right one. This is the right one, I think, yes. No, I was right. Sorry, just get to the right place here. Yep. Okay, and I'm just going to log in here. Okay, so this is a bit of a demo of a scenario demonstrating the capabilities of Dynamics 365 Omnichannel for customer service. So in the context of this, enabling customer service across any channel for remote agents that might be working from anywhere, I think this is a good way to illustrate the point. So the first thing is we start with a live chat. And a customer could be navigating your website. And in this case, this is unfortunately not a financial services scenario. So you'll just have to use your imagination in terms of that. It's a printing scenario. But we've got a customer who's visited the website and they're able to open up a chat window. By the way, this website is based off the Power App portal that I mentioned earlier. And I'll touch on a little bit later as well. So it's a capability that allows you to extend your customer service or sales to your customers. And there is a chatbot. And this chatbot is empowered by another capability in the stack here called Microsoft Power App Virtual Agent. And it's saying, do I have my email address? So I'm going to give it So it comes back and it recognizes Charlene as an existing customer, because at the moment I'm not logged in anywhere, so I'm still unauthenticated. I'm going to say that my issue is I need some troubleshooting of my services. It's asking me for a printer model. So in this printing scenario, I know that I've got a 3D Master Pro. And I know that my model is the first one here. And it's going to ask me for details of my problem. So I can say I'm getting and the bot is going to give me a knowledge base article. I'll click on that just to show you what we get. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to say this did not solve my problem. The bot is giving me another article. For the purposes of the demo, I'm going to say it's still not solving my problem. And it's saying we are creating a case for your concern. So I just want to make sure that this page loaded okay. Actually, it didn't. Let me just reload it quickly. Sometimes when you are leaving it running in the background, it goes to sleep. So let me just see if I can wake it up here. We should get a little green box here. So we're saying, yes, we would like to talk to a customer representative. And with any luck, the system should now, as an agent, so the idea is I'm logged in here as an agent. And actually, it doesn't seem to have loaded. Let me try that again. So if I just load that page. Okay. That may come back to life in a minute. If not, let me just see if I can show you an existing one that is already open. And it may not actually let me open that. Let's just see. Yeah. No, it's not going to let me open that. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not going to. Oh, there we go. Coming to life. Okay, if that doesn't come to life, I'll just explain in concept what is happening here. But what actually happens is you get two windows. One is on the left-hand side of this window, and it's probably in the screenshot here. Here you can actually see it. You get the chat that the customer is seeing. As an agent, I can chat to the customer. And on the right-hand side in Omnichannel, what you're going to see is the customer's details, a case that has been created for this customer. So the case management capability is one of the core components of Dynamics 365 customer service. And it then links the chat to the case for the customer. And from there, I'm in Dynamics. I can service the customer. I can respond. It gives you things like shortcut replies. I can share knowledge base articles and eventually wrap up the call. I can ask colleagues for help. I can transfer this case around the organization if there's, say, a manager that needs to get involved. And make sure that the customer is getting great service. And obviously the idea of the omni-channel capability, you were seeing there a web chat scenario, but the idea is this will integrate with any of your channels, whether that is telephony, social, WhatsApp, yeah, pretty much any channel. Okay, so sorry that demo didn't actually work for you. There is a co-browsing capability there. So if the customer's on your website and they're busy looking at a particular page, you can co-browse as an agent with them and see what they're seeing and point them in the right direction on your web page. Yeah, there's telephony integration here, including video chat. And I did mention the Power Virtual Agent as a bit of a screenshot of it. So it's a bot builder, a wizard-driven configuration-based bot builder, which is a really great way to be able to start getting bots out to your customers based off the data in Dynamics. There is some advanced resource scheduling and optimization capabilities here. Some of these capabilities are coming through from the Dynamics 365 field service application, but are available to us no matter what type of service we're delivering to our customers. So that caters for things like, you can see there's a map here, but it also caters for things like skills-based routing. So yeah, a lot of capabilities in terms of optimizing your customer service. Team. I want to talk about the underlying capabilities we've spoken through our sales teams into our customer service delivery teams. There's underlying technology here for the industry. AutoCAD, apps, Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. A lot of power going on there. So we've spoken about a common data service. What does this give you? I really like this slide to kind of get a bit of an idea of what is you authenticate and log on, but also data security. So in other words, what you have access to as a particular user. There is then a logic layer, so things like business rules. If this happens, then this should happen. Things like duplicate detection we've had a look at. Workflows, such as a customer onboarding process, or a particular type of customer service process, or a particular type of sales process. And there is obviously data, lots and lots of data. So there is a common data model, as I mentioned, that stores the data. There's validating that data, obviously analytics on that data, AI modeling on that data, and more. Obviously, there's a lot in terms of the storage of this information. So we've got a cloud storage of the data in a relational data set. Both structured and unstructured data is supported here. There's fluid integration into things like data lakes. So in the Azure stack, Azure Data Lake, for example. And then there's integration. So these days, we're often talking about streaming and event-based integration of big data. All of this is capabilities that are part of the stack, being able to transfer data in and out of this common data model to your other cloud applications. There's also increasingly a range of pre-integrated cloud applications that can just connect to this common data model in this cloud world that we're now in. Okay, so that's a little bit about some of the sort of underlying capabilities there. I just wanted to show you an example from one of our clients that went live quite recently. This is Fairhead's Benefit Services, and this is their portal. So it's based on the Power App portal, and what they're doing here is they're providing large insurers with a landing page to provide beneficiary applications. So as a life insurance is claimed, they hand the administration of the beneficiaries over to Fairheads, and all of the information and paperwork is being filled in on this portal. There is also robotic process automation capabilities included in Power Automate, the workflow capability here. So that is worth mentioning. And then maybe just to make that a little bit real for you, if I see my bot has, my omnichannel has come to life. Let me just see if I show you quickly. If I just accept that incoming web chat call, hopefully you'll get to see what I was referring to earlier. So there is my web chat, and here is my customer and case information in Dynamics. For example, here is a shortcut allowing me to send a quick reply. So all of this is sitting inside Dynamics 365. Okay, so just getting back to the right place here. How do I get rid of the screen? There we go. Okay, so if I go to Power Apps, just wanted to give you a little bit of context behind the capability here. What you're going to see here is the common data model that I was referring to. And for example, there will be an entity in here called policy, which we've configured for some of our, if I get to the right place, rid of this message. Okay. Insurance policy. And what you then get to see is all of the fields for this entity, the forms, meaning the screens. So I'll just show you quickly what the screen might look like. Gives you a bit of a designer. It's a drag and drop approach, so we can move fields around on the screen. We can add visual elements such as sections and tabs. So yeah, here's pretty much a screen that you can define for yourself. And there's a lot more here, as I was alluding on that slide. So relationships between these different entities that we create in a table structure. Business rules that I alluded to. So saying, you know, hide this field if this happens. Obviously, all the views in the system, the dashboards, the charts, and ultimately to be able to get access to the underlying data, which we can then pull into something like Power BI or leverage the AI capabilities in the stack. Great. So that gives you hopefully a little bit of an idea of Dynamics 365 in the custom engagement components of the solution. I'm going to move on now to Akko, who is from A Solutions, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the finance and operations side of things, and specifically for banking. Akko, you still there?
Yes, certainly, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Great.
If we can go to the next slide, please.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Not able to request control, so I will have to ask you to go to the next and next. Okay. So we are going to present the A-Fintech, which is part of like an add-on to Microsoft Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, to empower especially the financial institutions to help them to get better reporting and better control of their business. We can go to the next, please. Yes, in the agenda we'll cover the A-Fintech and Dynamics 365 part. How does it fit in? Then the architecture, and then I will go to a short demo through the screen to show you how it looks like. Okay, you can go to the next one. Yes. So A-Fintech is helping you to connect your source systems, which we consider the let's say core banking systems, the insurance systems, mortgage systems, or whatever you use for your business as a core system, to integrate it with the ERP for your back office operations and to get better knowledge and better control of what is actually happening in your day-to-day business. So in our experience, you can see some of the biggest core banking systems on the left side in the source systems column. These are here just for example to show you that yes, we have connected them to Dynamics 365 and we are doing integrations. But also it's important for you to understand that we are able to connect this to any source system in the market. The core purpose of A-Fintech is to basically help you, as Roger mentioned in the beginning, to help you to integrate all your transactions in a very fast or short timeline and basically to have it much more cost effective. So as marketed, we are marketing this at 75% less time compared to integrating your source systems from scratch to Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. Basically what we do is we are integrating transaction level core transactions. What does it mean? So all transactions that you have that are happening in your core banking system or your treasury or insurance system, we are able to bring them to Dynamics, do some aggregation on them based on configuration, based on user configuration actually, and then post them in the GL. And at the end of the day, you will have consolidated picture of your back office, which will contain of financial management like budgeting, fixed assets, accounts payable, expense management, as well as procurement, human resources like Roger previously mentioned, the talent, the recruitment, the payroll, etc., and then project and budget control. So this is what we face in every bank. Bringing in all the transactions to serve as, let's say, for analysis purposes or trial and balance purposes, we can consolidate all of this, so the core business and the back office through Power BI or through financial reporting and business analytics, and present a clear picture of the whole overview of the business for the people that need to basically make strategic decisions or are in the executive level. Moreover, from the transactional level for transactions, we are capable also of getting in summary level, so already aggregated transactions, so the aggregation will not happen on the F&O side. As part of this product, we also support automated payments or EFTs with the whole predefined process. So we reduce the human error in the whole process or the human intervention. So we can have it basically configured and nobody needs to do anything going forward once we configure it. Okay, then we have the settlement and reconciliation process. Of course, we have automated all this bank reconciliation from MT940, ISO 20022, etc., all the let's say standard, all the standard formats. And then on top of it, this is all encrypted and secure because we're using as well as communication encryption, also file encryption. So I'll switch now to my screen. I'll start sharing it. Just a second. I hope you're able to see it. Okay. Okay, we jump to the next slide. This is a list of a fintech implementation, or where did we implement and what were the outcomes. So our, let's say, most relevant point here is the Access Bank, which is headquartered in Nigeria. We have managed to, for example, replace huge license on Oracle FlexCube and on Oracle Fixed Assets Management. Why? Simply because the Access Bank was actually doing some ERP or back office operations into the core banking system, where this is basically not needed. We don't need, I mean, the core banking system should stay as is and doing only the banking transactions, but all the back office operations should go to an ERP. So basically with this A-Fintech, we don't want to replace the core banking system, we just want to enhance it and also improve the investment return of licenses and software. As you can see, we have done it in Central Bank of UAE, National Bank of Bahrain, Commercial Bank International, this is in Dubai, and Dubai Future Foundation, this is a governmental institution. As you can see on the outcome, it's always the same. It always goes to the automated back office processes, automated import of GL data, and then it's saving on licenses. So bottom line, this is what we do. We automate many of the processes and we save you a lot of money on the license. Now we are going to go through the architecture and the processes within the A-Fintech and Dynamics 365 Finance. So high level of the architecture of A-Fintech and the communication options. As you can see here, we have put that we can have any source system. So intentionally we don't name it because we claim that we're able to connect to any source system. The communication will go through any known communication protocol of today, which is either direct database connection, either through FTP or SFTP, web services like REST and SOAP, all authentication web services, or maybe even a shared folder somewhere on the network. Then through this communication protocol, we are sending or receiving the proprietary data models of every source system. So again, here it's source system, any source system. We have done so far with Oracle FlexCube, Temenos, Kyriba, Mambu, which is an online platform, Smart Business, which is a ENBD Emirates Bank format, or SAP. So basically, we maintain proprietary data models, or we receive the data in one of these models. And then what we do is we transform the data, we map it to a common data model that is understandable for Dynamics. And using data entities, we are pushing the data to Dynamics 365 FNO. Or it can be the vice versa, the opposite side communication. From Dynamics, we will map it to common data model, then we will transform to a proprietary data model if needed, and then send back to the source system. If we need to send some reconciliation, if we need to send some payments to a bank, etc. Here, when we say 75% less time of integration compared to integrating your systems to finance and operations from scratch, we put attention to this proprietary data model. So the only development that we do so far to integrate the systems is to be able to actually understand the source system proprietary data model and transform it to the common data model. Why do we have this architecture? Is because processes within a financial institution are almost the same everywhere, no matter of the continent, no matter of the, let's say, specific business. We still need to get the data in Dynamics in terms of accounting transactions. And we need to export the data in terms of payments outside of Dynamics. So the concept is the same. That's why we are able to maintain a common data model and then keep the same processes. Of course, if needed, if your processes are, let's say, very much specific, we can do some customizations additionally, but this, what we see so far, is put to the minimum. So if we say about how much time it will take us to integrate your source system to Dynamics, if we compare that, for example, if we do something from scratch, or any company does from scratch, it will take them about 800 to 1,000 hours to actually do the integration. For us, it will take maximum 200, 250 hours to basically have the integration in place and the users can start working on it, which in timeline will translate to something that less than a month. Next thing is to get into, let's say, details of how do we do the aggregation, and depending of which kind of transactions we receive. So basically, from the proprietary data model, we do the serialization. Then we do transformation using some .NET libraries. And then we map it to the common data model. Then in the common data model, we are able to understand, okay, do we receive bulk transactions? What would bulk mean? It means detail level transactions down to the customer transactions, meaning we could receive like up to 30 million transactions per day. But in terms of GL, this is not needed for you to have all this number of transactions in the GL per day. Why? Because it's a lot of data to maintain in Dynamics, which is not needed, and then it is downgrading the performance of Dynamics. But what we do instead, we keep this data for data warehouse and reporting through Power BI, but for the posting in the GL, we are aggregating this data. How do we aggregate it? Based on financial dimensions like department, branch, cost center, project, etc. So we can define these financial dimensions as per your requirement. Then we aggregate them, these bulk entries, and then we come down to, for example, from 30 million, we can come down to 1 million transactions per day, aggregated and posted in the GL. And then again, it will reflect the same balance as of the 30 million. And then we apply some accounting rules if needed. For example, you have a payment for a loan, you're insurance or loan institution, you have a payment for a loan, then this accounting entry should be divided actually in 3 different transactions, right? So this is what we do with the accounting rules. And then we post the data in the GL, in the general ledger. This is on the GL transactions. Next thing is the vendor payments automation. This is high level how it's done. We have the bank, we have the Dynamics 365 F&O, and we have the finance users and the corporate. So basically how it starts, we're doing an auto payment proposal, meaning we are able to schedule a job that will run every day, and that will check all the due invoices for the vendor. Then it will automatically create the vendor due invoices, and then it will send them for review for the finance users. Once the finance user approves the payment, then it will go through a workflow approval process where somebody from the corporate can either reject or approve. Once it's approved, it goes to host-to-host integration, as we call it. This is for the payment, where we actually send the payment to the bank. Then the payment is processed in the bank, and then the bank decides if it's successful. We receive a notification that it succeeded, and then we do auto posting of the payment, and the payment journal is closed. In case there is a failure, we receive the errors. We review what is the error. Maybe an account is missing, an account is wrong, etc. Once we change, so the finance user will change, they send it to approval. If it's approved, we can have, let's say, two choices. If you want to send it automatically through the whole automated process, or we want to extract the file manually and send it or upload it to the file bank system. So we cover all these possible scenarios for the vendor payments automation. Of course, this part of the, let's say, submission to workflow, it can be done automatically. So once it's created, it can be automatically submitted to workflow. That's part of configuration, as well as the approval. If it's created, we can have approvals, or we can just skip the approvals and have the payment paid fully automated. Again, if we go to the implementation of aFintech, which again I will stress out, is not to replace the core banking system or any of your source systems, but to extend your capabilities and have consolidated view of your whole business into one place, which should always be the ERP or the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. What we do is we are able to configure this through the interface, through the F&O interface. We have a robust and flexible solution to basically adopt to any business need or framework architecture. We are able to fit all core banking solutions, and we need 75 less time to implement this compared to any implementation which would start from scratch. Next thing that is, I will show you how does it look in the user interface. Just let me share my other screen. Okay. So here is how Microsoft Dynamics Finance and Operations looks. These are called workspaces. These are called workflow items. So these are items that are assigned to you for approval. And these are the modules. As you can see, aFintech is part of the standard look and feel of Microsoft Dynamics. We have divided in 4 submenus, which is basically following the Microsoft Dynamics best practices. And we will start with explaining to you how configuration can be done. So the setup is done through connection configuration, where we map all the different, let's say, touch points of the integration. So we're able to choose an integration system. It helps us to identify what will be the proprietary data model. If it's not selected, we are using some predefined default data model. Then we have integration points that we can use, like general ledger transactions import, reconciliation, payment requests, export, import, etc., etc. Then we are able to choose the connection protocol. FTP, currently it's configured with FTP, but we have SFTP, REST, SOAP, SQL, file share. Then we have different data formats that we support. CSV, JSON, XML, or database. And then we have something called credentials. I'll jump into it right after. Then we have the aggregation grouping. So how do we do the aggregation? What are the, let's say, predefined financial dimensions from the common data model that we're going to basically do the aggregation on? So as you can see, we have put them here, but they come as, of course, as default. So we do aggregation on currency, code, on GL account, on date, on branch, department, cost center, business unit, source system, or product. And then the configuration changes depending on what we're using, whether we are using FTP or REST or whatever. So this is how the configurations are configured. Then we have the isBulk, where we are importing bulk transactions that we need to aggregate. And then we have whether we want to, when we import them, to auto aggregate and import, or we want to basically just import them and then we will do aggregation at end of day or end of week or whatever. I mentioned connection credentials. Here we basically maintain one credentials, or we can maintain many, for different integration connection. Here is the basically the encryption that we use. So we use PGP encryption or we use SSH encryption for the communication protocol. So this is, yeah, the recommended encryptions that are used worldwide or in many places. Then we'll go through the functionality, basically. We have divided this into three subsections. One is the payment. So this is related to the vendor payments that I explained last, actually. So we have the vendor payment proposal creation. So we are able to basically schedule a batch job where we will say we want this journal name, select the invoices by due date. We can put dynamic date here, like today -1, and then it will automatically select all the vendor invoices that are due yesterday for payment. We are able to do some other, let's say, filtering if we want specific vendors, if we want summarized payment dates, etc. And we are able to schedule this in the background with a recurrence that we will define. Once this is created, it will start creating vendor payments in the vendor payment journal, and then they will be basically sent to the bank. For example, yeah, we have, this is how they look. We have vendor payment for invoice and the amounts and how it was paid and etc. Okay, I'll not go into much details of it. Then we have, so this is about payment, and these are some, let's say, responses import from the bank, etc. Then we have the GL transactions, import and export, reconciliation export, reconciliation response import, etc. I will put my attention on the GL transactions import. So basically, we just configure it as I showed you before. We put it in a batch process, and this will run based on the recurrence or scheduling that we set. So we can basically set it to run every 2 hours, every day, every weekday, whatever we want. Once this is scheduled, it will start creating transactions in the vendor payment journal. So how we can see this, I'll show you just a second. So we go to the general journals. I will obviously, for this demo, I will show you one that is already generated. Just to find it. So here, this is an example of a GL, which is already posted. and it consists of already aggregated transactions. So here we see that we have different currencies. Some are in euros, some are in Great British pounds, etc. And moreover, we are able to dig in the voucher and see which actually transactions were aggregated for this particular line. We go and do that in the bulk transaction. And we are able to see that, okay, we have credit amount of 5,000 in currency euros on this date. This is the ledger account, the branch, department value, etc. So these two transactions form the credit of 10,000. Then we can see which are the, let's say, the debit ones. And here they are. So these two, let's say, 4 transactions are aggregated and balanced in the voucher. And this is giving us the voucher based on the date. So as you can see, yeah, we have many transactions which we can go into and see from which bulk transactions they were actually aggregated. Here you can see this is one from 3. We got it in a file, default sales demo 3, etc. Okay, so this is how it effectively looks in the GL. And we have developed, to support this, we have developed, let's say, a smart integration log where we are basically able to see that we have imported bulk of 32 records and that the ledger journal 759 is posted in this log, this transaction. We are able to see the log type and we are able to see basically which transactions were imported here. So it will show us all the 32 transactions with the dimensions, with the account, etc. So this is how we basically look into it and troubleshoot if there are any errors. And then if there are errors, we can process errors, and then it is smart enough to basically find and query the source system with whatever is needed, or reprocess the file or make another web request, etc. Okay, this is about the integration log. This is something called general ledger bulk entries. Here we are able to see all the bulk entries. So for example, if we see 30 million of, if we have 30 million of transactions per day, we'll be able to see these transactions here. However, these are aggregated and posted in the GL. So we still have information about them. And currently we are, let's say, improving Afintech to move all these transactions to a data lake, where we can connect Power BI directly to the data lake instead of finance and operations, and then have a less load of data in the dynamics and operations data lake, but keep everything on the data lake, which can be done, I mean, which requires subscription on the data lake, but that is a very small fee per month or per year. Then we have something called common. Here we have some functionalities which are common for all other functionalities to work, which is the exchange rates import. So we are able to basically automate the exchange rates import. How do we do it? First we need to set up the exchange rate types and the connection IDs. So here we say this is a connection ID with integration system Silver Lake through FTP. And we are expecting that whatever comes from this connection will update the default exchange rate type in the system. Default exchange rate type, we can see which exchange rates we maintain. So in this type, we maintain, for example, I mean, this list of exchange rates. And for example, we have Euro and Great British Pound. So whatever comes as an exchange rate through this connection and for this exchange rate type will come in here with the updated date. Okay. Then we have something called exchange rate types from core, so from core banking. Basically, sometimes we need to maintain two different formats for exchange rate, and this is why we have, so one will come from the central bank most probably, the other one will come from the core banking system, and then they will be mapped to different exchange rate types. Then we have chart of accounts import. Why is this used? This is used mainly for the main account that will be created in the core system to basically integrate them in Dynamics to prevent potential fail of transactions that will come. So, for example, a new account is created in the core banking system, but we don't know about it in Dynamics. So, to avoid this human interaction to create the main account, we're able to dynamically import them and then be ready for the transactions that will come for the day to be aggregated. Otherwise, if the main account is not found in Dynamics, it will fail. Again, we have set up for the main account types mapping. So, for example, these are the main account types in Dynamics. We have asset, profit, loss, revenue, expense, balance sheet, liability, equity, and total. Of course, this can be extended if you need some more types. But from the core system, they can be named differently. Like A, like BS, like L for liability, or it could be the same name, but this is how we do actually the mapping. So we can have different source types to map to one type in Dynamics. Again, this is an automated job that can run based on recurrent setup, and it will just import the main account. For example, before this demo, I prepared some accounts that are imported through the integration. So here they are, demo accounts, where we basically create them. Then we have the bank account statement import. Bank account statement is coming from the bank, and it's related to bank accounts in the bank, of course. We support the standard bank account formats, and compared to the standard Microsoft Dynamics, we are basically automating this process, because in the standard you have to do this manually, upload the bank account statements, etc. But what we do, we go one level upper, and we say, okay, you just need to configure it one time, and then we are importing it automatically. And the last part is the aggregation and import of bulk GL transactions. Basically, this is a functionality in case, I mentioned in the beginning, in case we do not select to auto aggregate and import, we need to do the aggregation and import in the GL at the end of the day. So this is basically supporting that scenario. Once we have all the transactions imported, we are able to aggregate and import them into the GL and post the GL automatically. With that said, I'm basically covering all the functionality of A-Fintech. So I think we can go through the questions, if there are any.
Thank you, Eka. I see we are just about out of time as well. I think maybe, unless there are questions in the chat, I haven't seen any. Maybe we just quickly move on to the last remaining part. Peter, shall I maybe just share the slide on my side, or do you want to do it on your side? Great. that. All right, over to you. Peter, you there? Peter, I don't know about you. I'm not getting any audio from you. Are you there? Correct.
I think Roger. No, Peter is there. Now we can hear you.
Yes, can now, Peter.
Fantastic. Apologies to everybody called. Seems to be a bit of a bad network scenario over here by me, sitting in the Sahara. Yeah, thanks for attending the call. I just want to take you briefly around some options around funding investment from a group around business applications that we're looking at. Of course, we are working very closely with Microsoft on this. On the left of the slide there, you can see the various sales plays and very, some of these have been talked to quite in detail by Roger and Aku. So I'm just going to go very high level. Essentially, if you look at different sales plays or pain points for the organization that we can accelerate through this funding and through these assessment and engagement types. If you look at activated digital selling portion, it's really to provide an end-to-end digital buying experience to your customers and clients, make it easier for your customers to evaluate and buy, and of course, without having to have face-to-face engagement. If you look at then after enabling always and on service, which Roger also delved in quite a bit, really around looking at your customer profile, things like sentiment analysis, omni-channel management, and so forth, to really personalize a response across any channel. We then look at the next option here is building a resilient supply chain. That's of course in Dynamics Finance Operations. And that suite. It's really around creating supply chain visibility and agility in planning and sourcing and distribution of those processes. This, of course, will ensure that you can adapt to disruptions quickly and ensure business continuity. I think from on there on, we look at managing those financial risk and fraud in these sort of times. It's become quite challenging. Looking at ways of predicting your future cash flow better, minimizing that loss to payment, fraud or wrongful rejections, and of course optimizing your operations and ultimately to protect your revenue. One of the plays we can look at is building agile business processes, essentially that will allow your organization to modernize, automate, and innovate faster. So essentially eliminating inefficiencies and solve those challenges that could be across any part of your business. And then lastly, we look at generating value with proactive insights. This is really recommendations through Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right,
I
thank
can
you.
hear you, Peter.
All right. No, I just got called on a call. Apologies for everybody to call. So essentially, if you look at the last, generating that value through proactive insights is very important, and that's really driven through artificial intelligence, through customer insights in Dynamics, to provide your business with greater insights and essentially unlock more value from your data. I think if we can sum that up, and there's a lot of sort of a high level, but essentially that will be the 6 sort of areas we can focus on. We run that either through the Catalyst program or through a proof of value assessment. The Catalyst program has 3 options really, or 3 pre-sales engagement types. The one is envisioning workshops and solution assessment. BD is a business value assessment and solution assessment. Of course, it would be a combination of A and B. Additionally, you can either opt for a in-a-day workshop or a POC type of scenario, or we can look at piloting any one of those plays on the left there. To reiterate, up to $10,000 US is available for qualifying clients. And really, again, this is a way of proving technology to you, accelerating the opportunity, and ultimately really providing that value, that data value, as quickly and responsive as possible in the time we're in today. So I think if there's any questions around this, please reach out to me directly through LinkedIn or through our marketing team on the call. And there's also a form at the end of the session here today. Please fill it out, and so we can assist you and take it forward. And I think that's a wrap from our side, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Peter. That's great. Yeah, so thanks everyone. I think that concludes our presentation. We ran a little bit over time, but hopefully you got some value out of all of the content that was shared. We will be communicating around the 500 Rand Takealot voucher for those that attended a little bit later in the day. So look out for your email on that. And thank you very much. Yvonne, I don't know if there's anything else that you need there.